Hi, this is Travis from Gro Hydroseeding, here to go over the most important part of hydroseed, and that is a sprinkler system that waters equally everywhere. And I can tell you, people struggle with it more than you would think. I would also point out that just because you hire a contractor, a professional, do not just assume that it's installed properly. The jobs we follow, I would say easily about half of the jobs contractors do are not properly nozzled or designed or installed. So, first thing I want to point out, this head here doesn't even have a nozzle. So it got blown out or they forgot to put it in, but that should have a nozzle. If it doesn't, it's just gushing out as if it's like a hose, and it's definitely not watering equally. It's probably putting out, I don't know, like 20 to 30 gallons per minute, and so it's going to swamp all this area while the other areas on the zone are going to be dry, okay? And then if you walk over here on this same zone, they have installed pop-up heads, these little pop-ups that spray a straight mist. That is a definite no-no. You never mix pop-ups with rotors on the same zone because they don't water the same. These heads here, these pop-up heads, water about 2 to 3 times more gallons per minute than the big rotors. And so again, they'll always be swampy here for the life of the lawn, while out on their big rotor heads, it's going to be dry and always going to be burning up. And so that's a definite no-no. And if you look here in the shade line, the one area on the lawn that gets shade that could probably go with less water happens to be right here, but it's the one spot where they're using pop-up heads and they're actually putting triple the water. So a definite uneven balance of water, okay? Now if you walk out here with me, Jordan, now this is where it gets really bad. Now we walk out here, it's full sun, and now we've got full-size 360-degree rotor heads, okay? Now, this rotor head that just shut off, we checked it before we turned it on, and it was a 1.0 gallon per minute nozzle. These nozzles all have little numbers on them between 1 and like 8 gallons per minute. Those are very important to understand. People just throw in a 3 gallon per minute nozzle on every rotor head and they assume it's watering perfectly. That's totally inaccurate. So for example, if you have a quarter circle rotor head covering 90 degrees, let's say you start with a 2 gallon per minute nozzle. Well, that means if you have also a half circle rotor head on that same zone, you've now doubled the square footage, so therefore you should double the gallons of water because it's covering double the area. So if you have a 2 gallon per minute on a quarter, you should theoretically have a 4 on a half circle, and on a full circle, you should be up to an 8, right? So a lot of people go 2, 4, 8, or like a 7 or a 6, just because 8's put out so much water. Or they'll do 1.5 gallons, 3, and then 6, right? But either way, you have to understand, as you have bigger heads covering more square footage, you have to have bigger nozzles. That's probably the biggest oversight we witness in the field, okay? And you can see the results. They're full circle nozzles. It's dry as a bone and the grass did not grow, and theoretically, that's not the hydroseed's fault. That's a sprinkler issue, not a hydroseed issue, okay? Now, as we go over here, last thing I want to point out is design flaws. We see some crazy designs, like I don't know how well you can see in the video, but we've got 3 rotor heads right here in a triangle within like 12 feet of each other. Like, that makes no sense. It's clearly getting way more overlap here than it is out in the middle, and that's why out in the middle is dry and it never germinated and it burnt up in the hot summer, whereas this is green as can be because it's probably getting quadruple the water. And even mathematically, if you just do the math, if you're a 2 gallon per minute in the corner and a 4 on a half, therefore you should be an 8 in the middle. This specific customer has a 1 gallon per minute nozzle in the middle. He's probably off, I haven't done the math, you could do it, but he's probably off by about 2,000% on his water rate, his gallons per minute. So again, we see so many yards that struggle with either poor nozzling, poor design, mixing pop-ups with rotors, or heads that are slanted, and so they're washing out on one side, and on the other side they're shooting straight up. The last thing I would point out is you always want to screw that screw down in the rotor head so it just barely hits the stream and fans it out so it waters more evenly. That way it won't put 80% of the water out at the very end of the stream, about 30 feet from the head. Then you'll have like these weird crop circle designs where you got green right around the head and green 30 feet out, but in the middle it's dry. So those are all the do's and don'ts. Please follow our advice. Don't just assume that the contractors did it properly or your husband, even though I'm sure he's a weekend warrior and a champ. Definitely pays to have an equal watering system.